It doesn't matter if it's fantasy football or real life, we're always on the lookout for a good, safe tight end, right? Well, that's what we're talking about here today, some safe tight ends in 2022. What is going on, Headline Nation? Jake, Fantasy Headliners. Hopefully everybody's doing well out there today. We're going to try to find some of the quote-unquote safer tight ends here for 2022 fantasy football. Now, we all know the big names at the top, the Kelce's, the Andrews, the Wallers, the Kittles. Is there anyone else at the position that can finish pretty close to these guys in some metrics that we can get at a cheaper price in case we miss out on those bigger names? That's the purpose of this show here today. Going to be a lot of fun. Got a lot of metrics to really go over here and try to find some of those later round gems. Now, before we get into the metrics and the players, got to remind you guys, you saw the ad for our draft guide just at the beginning of this show. Did you know that you get your draft guide for free if you want to? All you have to do is sign up for a new account on prizepicks.com. There's a link down below in the description. Use the referral code Headliners. Make your initial $20 deposit. They'll then match your deposit to $20 and you'll get a free draft guide. It's over $60 worth of value for just $20. You don't want to miss out on that. Like I said, link down below in the description. Just make sure you use that referral code Headliners. And then I got to set you a like goal, right? I mean, you guys love the like goals. Even the doc is beating his like goals. In this point of the offseason, love to see that for this one because we're all a fan of the tight ends. Let's go for 1,298 likes on this video, and I'll give away a free draft guide to somebody down below who leaves a comment. Pick a random winner here once we hit that like goal. But now, let's dive into some of the metrics. Let's see what we're going to be taking a look at here today. And you're going to see a lot of the same things we talk about when we look at wide receivers, right? Games played, average targets per game, target separation. How about slot snaps per game, though? I love a tight end that can get some snaps in the slot, if you know what I'm talking about. More involvement in the passing game and more opportunity to face defensive coverage. That's a lot smaller to really create that mismatch. Drop rate, we hate them drops. Yards after the catch per reception. Red zone targets per game, and fantasy points per target. Now, what I've done is taken all the tight ends that I could possibly really kind of somewhat classify as safe, right? Because after those big names are off the board, there's not a whole lot to really work with. So I've got the top 26 tight ends here included in this video. I'm then going to take all 26 of these guys, compare them head to head in the metrics that we just listed above, and see who comes out on top. They'll all receive a score for each metric from 1 to 26. If they've tied in a metric, they'll get the same score. So somebody's not, getting bonus points for scoring the same amount of numbers. So let's go ahead and dive into this, and let's kick it off with games played. And really, you're going to see that right off the bat, there's a lot of guys in that 15, 16, 17 range or so. Some of the guys who didn't quite hit that number, though, Logan Thomas. How limited is he going to be here in 2022? Some of his numbers you're going to see in this video pretty good, but we have to take into account the injury he's coming back off of here this year. Darren Waller, again, missed some time last year. Same with TJ Hawkinson, Hayden Hurst, George Kittle. George Kittle's always going to be good for missing 1 or 2 games, each year. The guy just plays so hard. Albert, are you okay right there at 14 as well? Not a whole lot to see on this metric, but I wanted to make sure that I included it and kind of took some points away from the guys who tend to miss some time. How about average targets per game? Now, this is what we want, right? This is how we score points. We got to have an opportunity to catch the football right off the bat. Mark Andrews at 9.1. What's awesome about that? Mark Andrews averaged over 9 targets per game, and then they lost their leading wide receiver in Marquise Hollywood Brown. That number could creep into the double digits this year, which makes Mark Andrews an absolute smash play. Not really a shock to a lot of people, though. Everybody already loves Mark Andrews. Darren Waller at 8.5. Well, they've added in Devontae Adams. How much does that number drop down? Travis Kelce at 8.4. No more Tyreek Hill. You're seeing some of these big names at the top really impacted by some of these off-season roster moves, and it's making the best of the best really that much better. TJ Hawkinson at 6'9". They drafted Jameson Williams, who I don't expect to see a whole lot this year, and they brought in DJ Chark. Do they use more DeAndre Swift as well? Maybe we see a little bit more TJ Hawkinson. George Kittle. Zach Ertz at 6.6. A lot of people just continue to overlook Zach Ertz, and he may not be what he used to be a few years ago in Philadelphia, but when you're looking for a safe, consistent tight end, Zach Ertz in Arizona, especially with no Hopkins the first 6 weeks of the season, that number could definitely get a little bit of a bump. You see some of the guys there at the bottom. Hayden Hurst wasn't overly involved in the offense last year. Mo Cox, no problems. They had to worry about Jack Doyle. Doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Albert, are you okay in Denver? This number could drastically jump this year. Like drastically. And you're going to see his name start to pop up a little bit higher on some of these lists going forward. Now they got Russell Wilson under center. He's going to be the number one option there with no Noah Fant at the tight end position. Albert, are you okay? Maybe a little bit sneaky here this year. And let's move down to target separation. And right off the bat, Noah Fant, 2.52 yards of separation. Do you guys know how open that is? I mean, can you put it into perspective? Go grab a tape measure. On average, on targets, this guy has 7.5 feet of separation. There's nobody even within arm's reach of this dude when he's targeted. Noah Fant, from the very beginning, when he came out with TJ Hawkinson, I remember sitting at the combine watching Noah Fant going, dude, this guy is special. We just need to get him some better quarterback play because he can get open. One good thing going in his way, even though he's now in Seattle, at least he has his Denver quarterback there in Drew Lock with him. So hopefully they really have that chemistry already and can kind of build off of that. Dallas Goedert, because right now, feeling so fancy. Dallas Goedert at 2.3, super wide open. And he needs to be in order for Jalen Hurts to find him. Logan Thomas, he could get open. How's his knee going to be this year, though? Then Albert, are you okay? Once again at 2.1, over 6 feet of separation on targets. Russ could have an absolute heyday with Albert O this year. I mean, we could be looking at, huge surprise in Albert, are you okay? I mean, I'm really loving this guy. All of a sudden this year is a very, very late pick. CJ, who's your mama? Right here at 2.08, now in a new team with the Jets. Love that for Zach Wilson. Some of the guys near the bottom. Is it crazy that Kyle Pitts finished last? I kind of found that pretty crazy. 1.07, so he's still 3 feet of separation, which isn't bad. But compared to some of these other guys, he wasn't really getting that separation in this offense. He was forced to really go up there and contest, for balls a lot. Can that improve this year? I sure hope so, whether it's Mariota or Ritter there in Atlanta. It's got to get better. Can't get much worse. Can't finish much worse than last in a metric, right? Hayden Hurst at 1.29. How about Cameron Brate having more separation than Kyle Pitts? That's absolutely nuts. You got David Njoku, Pat Freiermuth, 1.37 and 1.34. Not bad overall numbers for tight ends, but compared to some of these other guys, they are definitely falling behind. All right, now we get to go look at some slot snaps. And I love looking at slot snaps. What this tells me is when we have a tight end with some high snaps in the slot, they're more involved in the team's vertical passing game. They're not so much just the dink and dunk chain movers, right? They're actually being involved deeper down the field. They want those mismatches in the slot with their tight end, the big body tight ends, to go up there and make big plays happen. That's why you always see the likes of Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews towards the tops of these metrics, because they're putting him in positions to win. And Mike Gesicki is typically in a good position to win, for sure. 24.2 slot snaps per game. Now, is that number going to go up this year? Absolutely not. They added Tyreek Hill. They added Cedric Wilson. They already have Jalen Waddle. Chase Edmonds in the backfield. That number's got to come down this year for Mike Gesicki. I do not expect him to see that much work in the slot. Mark Andrews at 22.1. Travis Kelce, 15.7. Zach Ertz, 14.6. Great numbers. Kyle Pitts right there at 14. Love to see him creep back up. Some of the guys there at the bottom shouldn't be much of a surprise. Albert, are you okay? Cameron Brate, David Njoku, Austin Hooper, CJ, who's your mama, Hayden Hurst, not guys really known for being out wide. Maybe a little bit shocked that we didn't see more from David Njoku, but he's just really underutilized as a whole in Cleveland, so that doesn't really matter too much there. Let's look at drop rate now. And remember, we want the low numbers here. We don't like drops. So to have Austin Hooper dropping 9.7% of his targets is just unacceptable. Same goes for Cameron Brate at 8.8 and Darren Waller at 8.6. And then right above him, Kyle Pitts at 8.2, Dallas Goedert at 7.9. Evan Ingram, okay, I understand Evan Ingram. He's always at the bottom of this category. At the top, though, Hayden Hurst, full disclosure here, Hayden Hurst didn't get very many targets last year, so he didn't have very many opportunities. That's why I don't want to use just the total drop number, because obviously the guys who get more volume have more opportunities for drops. So I'm trying to use the percentage. So it's a little bit fairer across the board. George Kittle, 1.1. TJ Hawkinson, 2.4. Same with Higbee there at 2.4 and Albert Ayoke at 2.5. I was just a little bit more shocked at this metric of how many guys have some higher numbers. Anything higher than 5, in my opinion, oof. Like, we don't want you to be dropping that many passes. So Dalton Schultz, Dallas Goedert, Kyle Pitts, Darren Waller, Cameron Brate, Austin Hooper, not exactly great in this metric. Their overall scores were definitely affected by this metric here, right here, the drop rate percentage. All right, let's look at yards after the catch per reception. Another one of those things where I could have just included total yards after the catch, total yak, but that's not fair because some of these guys get so much more volume that it's going to be totally skewed. So I did it per reception. Albert Ayoke averages 7.73 yards after the catch per reception, which tells me get the guy more receptions. How does he get more receptions? He needs more targets. How does he get more targets? Well, he needs some vacated targets. Perfect. No more Noah Fant there for him. He's going to get the opportunity at more targets this year, more quality targets with Russell Wilson. Talked about Albert Ayoke earlier. I'm not going to continue to harp on it. The guy could just be a great late round steal. David Njoku, that's what we kind of talk about here. Remember, I said I expect a little bit more from David Njoku. Well, 6.86 yards after the catch per reception is pretty good. We just need to get him more receptions. Don't know if we can really count on that potentially this year. Plus, it's really going to depend on the quarterback situation. Travis Kelce, obviously going to be at the top of this metric too. Mo Cox, Mo Problems at 6.42, followed by George Kittle, 6.21, Dallas Goedert, 6.13, and CJ Who's Your Mama rounding out at 6.04. Guys who really don't get much after the catch. Mike Gesicki, 3.04. But think back. Did you watch any Dolphins games the last year? There was a lot of times whenever Mike Gesicki was involved, he was having to go up, high point the football, make a contested catch, and control it all the way to the ground. He wasn't really getting the opportunity to get the ball in stride and continue up the field. So I can kind of see that for him. Hunter Henry, no shock there. He's more of a red zone guy for sure. Zach Ertz at 3.85, kind of similar to Mike Gesicki. Wasn't really put in a position to extend plays, but he was very safe when he was targeted. Now we're looking at red zone targets per game. So right, we want the chance at those TDs. And there's very few guys that could average over 1 red zone target per game. We had Darren Waller, Tyler Higbee, Dawson Knox, Pat Freiermuth, Cameron Brate, Zach Ertz, Travis Kelce, Noah Fant, and Hunter Henry, all at least 1 red zone target per game. We love that number. Love seeing the likes of Pat Freiermuth in here. Are they going to look for him more in the red zone, whether it be with Mitchie Biscuits or Kenny Pickett? Dawson Knox at 1.3. Does he lose any work to O.J. Howard in this offense? Tyler Higbee, not overly involved in the entire passing game as a whole, but once they got in the red zone, was somebody that they looked for. Darren Waller, does he lose some of these targets to Davante Adams? You have to think that he does. The guys at the end here, Evan Ingram, Albert Ayoke. Not a great showing here, Albert. Would love some more red zone targets, but now with Russell Wilson, I expect those to go up. We've seen Russ do this for years, right? Even with the guys like Will Dissly that he made, viable in fantasy football. Was it Jacob Hollister was another name? Guys you probably never even heard of. Russ turned into pretty solid fantasy tight ends. So Albert Ayoke, I expect that number to come up. And now we go to fantasy points per target. If you're over 2 in this metric, you are creme de la creme. I'm talking like the best. Over 2 is elite, in my opinion. Dawson Knox at 2.31 is borderline crazy, and that just makes me hate even more that they added O.J. Howard, because Dawson Knox is showing that he can go out there and handle it just fine by himself. Hunter Henry's number is going to be inflated by touchdowns. Dallas Goedert, Logan Thomas, George Kittle at 2.08. Hayden Hurst at 2.07. So that tells me for Hayden Hurst, he didn't get a lot of targets, right? We saw that earlier, but when he was targeted, he made something happen with it. CJ Who's Your Mama, David Njoku, Dalton Schultz at 2.01. Love to see that. Mark Andrews, Travis Kelce, both at 1.95 and 1.96. Not crazy away from that 2 mark, along with, Albert Ayoke at 1.9, Freiermuth at 1.92. Solid plays, right? That's exactly what you're looking for. So remember, what I did here is I went through all these metrics. I ranked them 1 through 26, totaled up all the columns. And when I did so, this was the top 12 that it spit out. And right away, I knew I was onto something because number 1 and 2 on the list were Travis Kelce and Mark Andrews. Now, I've never come on this show and said, hey, this is a bulletproof, fantasy tool that has 0 holes in it. We're always trying to improve things. That's why we do this as a community. We talk down below in the comment section, trying to find different things to look at to make it good. But when I saw Kelce and Andrews on the top of this list, I was like, wait a second. We're on to something, because those are the top 2 guys in fantasy football at the position almost every year. So who else is with them? Well, Dawson Knox once again. Hate how, like I said, they brought in O.J. Howard. George Kittle, kind of expected to be up here. Tyler Higbee, Dallas Goedert, Noah Fant, Logan Thomas, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, Darren Waller, and TJ Hawkinson. So maybe you're looking at this and saying, yeah, Jake, that's great. But not a lot's changed this year. What about the rest of where's all the other guys that were on the list? Okay, let's go through the overall standings here, 1 through 26. And just after the top 12 where we saw TJ Hawkinson, I'm talking about within the smallest of margins, we had Pat Freiermuth, love me the Muth this year. Mike Gesicki, Cole Kmet, CJ Who's Your Mama, Albert Ayoke, Dalton Schultz, Gerald Everett, Kyle Pitts at 20, surprising. Mo Alley Cox, Evan Ingram, David Njoku, Hayden Hurst, Austin Hooper, and Cameron Brate. But let's go back to our top 12 here. Because remember, things change in 2022. So what's different for some of these guys? Is their situation improving? Is it getting worse? Well, for Travis Kelce, I have to think I don't know how it could improve. But when you lose Tyreek Hill, it couldn't have gotten any worse for him. Mark Andrews, they lost their top wide receiver in Hollywood Brown, so it's got to be an opportunity for him to get more targets even. Dawson Knox, we talked about bringing in O.J. Howard. George Kittle, not much has changed. Tyler Higbee, not much has changed. Dallas Goedert, I'm going to have him trending down slightly because they brought in A.J. Brown, right? I mean, you can't add A.J. Brown, lose nobody, and just expect to get the same amount of targets. Noah Fant, I put not much of a change because if you think about it, he went from Denver to Seattle. Denver has Sutton and Judy. In Seattle, we got Lockett and DK Metcalf. He's going to have the same quarterback, so not a lot has changed there. Hunter Henry, same for him, not too many changes. Zach Ertz has no DeAndre Hopkins the first 6 weeks of the season. Darren Waller, they added Devontae Adams, and TJ Hawkinson, they added DJ Chark, drafted Jamison Williams, who we may see later on in the season. But when we look at the top 26, there were some of the guys after the top 12 that are trending certain directions as well. Mike Gesicki going down. I mean, we know as soon as they added Cedric Wilson, Tyreek Hill, and Chase Edmonds and Raheem Mostert, that Mike Gesicki just wasn't going to see the same volume. Cole Kmet is definitely trending up. There's no one there to catch footballs besides him and Darnell Mooney. Albert Ayoke is trending up. Dalton Schultz, they lost Amari Cooper. Gerald Everett, now with the LA Chargers, that can't be a bad thing, especially since they made Jared Cook somewhat, fantasy viable at times last year. Now Gerald Everett, a better tight end overall in my opinion. Hayden Hurst trending up. He gets to have balls delivered to him by Joe Burrow now. That can't be a bad thing. And then Cameron Brate, no more Gronk in Tampa Bay. The issue with Cameron Brate is I don't know if we see a whole lot of him other than in the red zone, so he could be very, very touchdown dependent. So when I look at this list here, if I look at these overall standings, there's 5 names that kind of stand out to me. Now, I don't need to sit here and tell you that Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, George Kittle, they're pretty good tight ends. You should probably draft those guys. You already know that. Some of the guys I'm really looking at here, Hunter Henry, Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, Albert Ayoke, and Dalton Schultz. Now, Hunter Henry is a good mixture of red zone opportunities and an offense in which he's going to be looked at in the short passing game. Zach Ertz, I think we see a little bit more vertical Zach Ertz, at least to start the season here, to try to stretch the field a little bit more. Pat Freiermuth. Listen, I can't talk enough about Pat Freiermuth and the potential for him to be a breakout tight end this year. The guy saw great volume last year from a quarterback that just couldn't maneuver in the pocket. When things broke down, Big Ben couldn't move. He couldn't do anything with it. They're going to have a different style of offense, I guess you could somewhat say, in Pittsburgh with Mitchell Trubisky and Kenny Pickett. 2 quarterbacks are going to be a little bit more mobile that can make things happen if the pocket collapses, and that's where you really get some of those chunk plays, the touchdowns going the way of Pat Freiermuth. Albert Ayoke, I've been talking about him, I feel like this entire show. Dalton Schultz. Huge opportunity for Dalton Schultz in an offense with no Amari Cooper, no Cedric Wilson, and Michael Gallup coming off of a torn ACL. Dalton Schultz could see huge, huge potential here in this season. But you got to remember, these are not my rankings for tight ends. That's not the purpose of this show. I've had people in other videos like, I can't believe you ranked those guys that way. I'm not ranking them anyway. I compared them all in metrics, and this is just what the numbers, what the facts, what the stats told us. And then we kind of looked at an outlook for 2022 to try to determine which one of these guys may be some of the quote-unquote safer options here this year. By all means, I'm not saying that Travis Kelce isn't my number one tight end, or Mark Andrews for that matter. No, I'm not trying to get too cute. We're just trying to find guys that we can get in similar situations at a cheaper price, because that's how you win fantasy football championships. So hopefully you enjoyed a show like this. If you did, make sure you hit the like button down below. That greatly helps us out here on YouTube. And then let me know, which of these tight ends would you focus on a little bit later in drafts? I already know y'all love the big names, but what are some of these lesser known names further down the draft board that maybe you're going to pay attention to here in 2022 fantasy football? Looking forward to seeing those comments down below. But for now, hopefully you guys have a great rest of your day, a great week, and we'll talk to you later.